Dr. Fauci is back in the news today. And he was at the Atlantic Ideas Festival, which is a festival put on by the Atlantic magazine. Let me just tell you something.
Oh, we can go to festivals now? Did he say?
I guess you can get together, but let me just say something. If I could picture a hell on earth of a place to go, it would be to go to the Atlantic magazine's Ideas Festival. Can you think of something worse? Like I'm thinking like if New York Times put on a poetry night. If you come to the New York Times poetry night,
I would not enjoy that.
That might be bad too. Or can you think of anything else in the chat? Let me know if you can think of anything else. But the Atlantic magazine is putting on an Ideas Festival, so they invited Dr. Fauci. Like this should just tell you everything you need to know about the Atlantic magazine.
What they I don't like any of those words.
No. So anyway, Dr. Fauci was asked. He was asked yesterday or last night at this Ideas Festival about lockdowns, about COVID lockdowns, and what kind of an impact it would have had on kids. He dropped this bombshell, and I was like, am I living in a friggin' bizarro world right now, Dr. Fauci? Listen to what he said about COVID lockdowns.
Sometimes when you do draconian things, it has collateral negative consequences. Just like when you shut things down, even temporarily, it does have deleterious consequences on the economy, on the school children. You know that.
Okay. Okay.
Wait. He said draconian?
Yeah.
He did say those words.
Can we, Philip, I know throwing you under the bus here, can we re-rack that videotape? Can you get out the VHS tape, the beta tape, and just re-rack that?
Just a second.
Okay, just re-rack that puppy. Re-rack it. And I want to hear that again. When you do, I think if I heard him correctly, he said, when you do draconian things.
Yeah. Like, as if he has a habit of doing draconian things, right? When I do things that totally screw up all of society, I think of it this way. This is how I normally contextualize my draconian actions.
Viking Life says, hey, Fauci, you don't do draconian things. Fauci. I like that name.
Okay.
Jail Fauci. Okay, listen to this again. Play it.
When you do draconian things, it has collateral negative consequences. Just like when you shut things down, even temporarily, it does have deleterious consequences on the economy, on the school children. You know that.
I want him, and instead of him saying, you know that, he should have said, that's something I just learned. Right? As if like he was saying to that guy, you know that, even though I have been denying it on camera for 2.5 years, you know that. I mean, it really should have been like, admits me right in this moment.
Like, here I am at the Atlantic Ideas Festival, and I just had an idea. When you do draconian things, it ends up hurting people. It hurts the economy and it hurts children. This is an idea I just had. Thank you, Atlantic Ideas. I just had this idea.
So, it's good that people who do draconian things can learn from their mistakes.
Unbelievable. So, but I just remember him literally 2 weeks ago talking to Neil Cavuto, talking about lockdowns, when we have all of this data about lockdowns and how harmful it was for children, what it caused for excess deaths, and we'll go through some of the data again in a second, what it did to mental health, what it did to the economy, what it did to small businesses. Again, I thought I remembered him saying the exact opposite of this with Neil Cavuto. Listen.
You had said a number of times, Doctor, on this show as well, that your response to COVID might not have been perfect, but it was in the times and the fast moments in which you lived and were making those decisions. So looking back at some of those decisions, including masks, you were first opposed to them, then you embraced them, the severity of the epidemic itself and completely shutting down virtually the entire American economy. Do you regret particularly the last one, the shutdown, the sweeping shutdown that some said made things worse?
No, I don't, Neil. And in fact, I think we need to make sure that your listeners understand I didn't shut down anything. There was a lot of consideration among the White House task force that we were reaching a point where the hospitals, such as in New York City and other places, were being strained to the point of practically being overwhelmed. And when Dr. Birx and I came with the proposal that we take 15 days to essentially get to the point where we slow, if not shut some things down, not completely, and the record will show, Neil, that we didn't recommend shutting everything down. We wanted to cause a pause, to remember the terminology, to flatten the curve.
But in retrospect,
And we
Doctor,
did
do
that
you
because
regret that it went too far? Whatever your original intentions were, and it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback here, but that it went too far, that particularly for kids who couldn't go to school except remotely, that it's forever damaged them.
Well, I don't think it's forever irreparably damaged anyone, but I think obviously, and if you go back and people selectively, Neil, pull things out about me, I was also one of the people that said we've got to do everything we can to get the children back in school. Go back to some of the clips that you and I had on your own show when I've said that it's very important that we protect the children from the collateral effects of keeping them out of school.
And that's interesting, isn't it? Because I
Right.
must have missed those clips when he was advocating for children.
Right. He was all about the children. Get them back to school. I mean, I did remember him talking about, getting back to school, but this idea that he wasn't responsible for lockdowns, that he wasn't responsible for suggesting to the president of the United States for lockdowns.
Yeah.
And wanted
He was the only one they were asking. Like
Right.
they had other doctors that were way more qualified that if they said anything that went against what Fauci said, they got rid of them.
Right. And the CDC was all but silent at this point.
Right.
And he absolutely, for the shutdown of the 2019-2020 school year, was all doom and gloom for going back. That's why most schools did not.
Yeah.
Right. And then was all doom and gloom about restarting. He absolutely wanted to shut down Halloween. Right. So these were his ideas.
Can we play? I just want to play the first soundbite again. So this was last night again at the Atlantic Ideas Festival. I just can't get over it. Watch it.
Sometimes when you do draconian things, it has collateral negative consequences. Just like when you shut things down, even temporarily, it does have deleterious consequences on the economy, on the school children. You know that.
You know that. You know that. You all know that it's going to fuck up the economy. You all know that it's going to screw up these kids. Of course it will.
Right.
It's horse shit. I mean, the list is endless. So he covered like his whole bases there. I mean, like, you know that it's going to screw up kids and the economy. That leaves nothing else. Like, what else is there? You're going to screw up families. You're going to screw up the economy.
Right.
Can you think of anything else? Like, I don't know.
And we're seeing how it is widening the class gap as well. And so I saw someone write in the chat, well, children are resilient. We are about to find out how children with privilege are more resilient than children who don't have parents who can sit down and go through the schoolwork or get them extra help. Or, the haves and the have-nots. We talked about recently how the achievement gap is widening and widening and widening, ever worse than ever before because of these lockdowns. So, to say children are resilient is incredibly unfair to them.
Yeah, John Levine, go ahead.
I was just going to say that people assume that every kid has a laptop, every kid has internet access.
Yeah.
We showed stories on this channel where there were kids sitting outside in New York on the street close to like a Starbucks just to get a little bit of internet so they could do their homework.
Yes.
Awful. Yeah. And if they're lucky, if they were able to, and if it wasn't freezing
if they
out.
had the laptop.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And if their parents weren't working or if they were working remotely, then, there was the stress of two different people in small places trying to do different tasks, right? Or parents were emergency workers. We saw even in New York City that in many areas, they were giving out school lunches because most parents don't budget for feeding their kids at home for lunch every day. So people would go to school. They weren't allowed in, just take the school lunch and go home, right? And there were other people who absolutely didn't have to do that. So they could make lunches with their family because they were remote workers and had some flexibility. So the impact of this in terms of of socioeconomic status is staggering, and we will see this continue to play out.
So John Levine is a New York Post reporter. He's been covering this story, how the effects of it on children in New York City, specifically what lockdowns meant. And he said this whole thing was a fraud, and they've basically underplayed how horrible this has been for children. Listen.
But obviously, anyone could have told you that closing schools for a year and making kids do remote learning is going to lead to disastrous, draconian outcomes. Remote learning was always a fraud. It was, I'll point to, in New York City, we have 100,000 students in the public school system who are chronically homeless. They're not whipping out a laptop and Wi-Fi in a homeless shelter. These are kids that just get lost completely in the system, and that they're not unique.
Not unique. Yeah, we saw all across the country millions of kids that didn't have access. So I'm just talking about the technical aspect of it, like getting Wi-Fi to learn actual learning. But all of the mental side of this, I mean, let's just go through some of the stats here. The lockdowns doubled your risk of mental health symptoms. During the summer, during almost 2 years of on and off again COVID lockdowns, lots of concern from many corners of the mental health effects. Many research projects were undertaken to attempt to measure the scale, and they found all sorts of issues across multiple mental health studies on this and the deleterious effects of this. Another study found, of course, excess deaths as it relates to lockdowns. At least 170,000 excess deaths in the United States. The National Bureau of Economic Research found that there were conservatively 170 plus non-COVID excessive deaths in the U.S. from 2020 to 2021. That's just the United States.
So these are deaths that the government does not model in its normal cycle of flu season or dangerous driving or what have you, right? And so the United States does not know why this is not charting in the way that the models normally chart. And the same thing is happening in the United Kingdom. According to Dr. John Campbell, upwards of 15%. They think that it has to do with maybe people who did not get treatable things treated. Right. Also, yes, the vulnerable populations became more vulnerable without the ability to sort of associate with other people or get outdoors or do other healthy habits. Right. Non-healthy habits got worse than ever. The diseases of despair that have to do with opioids, that continues to skyrocket. And we did a video just about 2 weeks ago about, again, the achievement gap, because now students are testing lower than they did well into the 90s, right? So it's as if 20 years of educational achievement never happened. And we know that dropping out of school is correlated with a lower life expectancy.
That's just tragic. And then the new study out just like a few days ago reveals new cases of childhood type 2 diabetes increased by 77%.
Oh, my goodness.
Thanks to lockdowns during 2020. 77% type 2 diabetes in children. So
you had a friend who posted during the lockdowns online, like, just curious, what are some other fun things to do at home besides eat? Right? Because we all felt like that. Yeah. Like, is it time to eat again? Might as well work on the next meal.
Just think how tragic it was to see when you walked by playgrounds and they had like police tape wrapped around playgrounds. Like, kids can't go out, can't play on the playgrounds. Like, so you suddenly knew this, Dr. Fauci? You just figured this out today? You lie. I mean, again, why aren't these people in jail?
Well, I wish he hadn't spoken of that in the habitual sense, like when you do draconian things, because now I'm just sitting to wait for what his next draconian thing is. Hopefully no one gives him the power to do that. Hold on a little longer, guys, because he is retiring from government service. And
again, he reminds me of that guy from The Simpsons, that scientist guy.
Right. Yeah, he is retiring. He's gone. But not before, hopefully, he gets dragged in front of the court and has to answer questions about it.